Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Lemons to Lemonade chat, what we like to call it, the L to L chat. My name is Brittany Oliver, and I'm the founder of Lemons to Lemonade. If you're tuning in for the first time, we used to have our L to L chats on Twitter. Then we moved it to IG during the pandemic. And now we are on LinkedIn Live. So we're excited to be here with you all. And Lemons to Lemonade, for those who aren't familiar with us, Lemons to Lemonade is a career, content, and event platform to help professionals navigate their career challenges, or AKA career lemons. And we do that through experts who come in and share their insight and their opinion, as well as content through our newsletter. So make sure that you follow along with us. So this month, what's exciting about this month is that for Women's History Month, we are featuring women who, have podcasts. And we're going through some of the podcasts that are related to careers. And so I'm excited to bring our guest on today, Non-Corporate Girls. So they have a podcast, Non-Corporate Girls Podcast, discusses the challenges and successes of juggling their 9 to 5 and 5 to 9. Okay, how many of you all have side hustles, right? So we talk about that, and they talk about that on their podcast. And what I love is that these women have invited me and shared their space with me in the past. And so I'm excited to have the founders of Non-Corporate Girls with us today. So we have Ayanna, and we have, let me hide the banner so y'all can see the names, and Delaila. So thank you so much for
having us.
Yes. So you all, my first podcast interview was with you all.
Yes, we popped your lemon.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But what I loved about, I felt honored to be invited because both of you had showed up for me in the past by attending some of the L to L mixers in New York. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of developed a relationship there. But I hadn't really seen a podcast that was catered to someone like me, a woman of color, and navigating not only my career, but the side hustle, because, L to L is a side hustle. And so no one was speaking to me in that way. And so I was really happy to have, you all invite me, but to see that you were creating this space for other people.
That means so much to us too, because you never know what's really landing or who's really receiving things in the right way. But for you to say that, it just helps us on our journey. It's like, this is where we're supposed to be. This is what we need to continue to cater for the community.
Exactly. Yeah. Your question, I know, because I went through them. It was like, why did we start? And that was literally the purpose of why we started Non-Corporate Girls. It was like literally from our own experience and gripe of trying to balance these two things when our full-time careers weren't always fulfilling our needs. And so we had to venture out and see how to kind of compensate for that.
Exactly. Because it's not a one size fit all when it comes to our careers. And I think a lot of people miss that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our point of view is even, it's not that it's narrow. We speak to a broad audience per se, but we are on the creative spectrum. So even for other people juggling different kinds of 9 to 5, it looks a little bit different from how they allocate their time and how they're able to, I would say there's some people that probably even don't realize that they can have a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 9 depending their career.
Mm-hmm. Right. Which is why our like podcast speaks to three different pillars. We like to say one is like the 9 to 5 space, one is in the middle where the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9 meet, and then the other one's the 5 to 9. Because there are people who have floated through each of those pillars. There are people who are taggling between two. It's just like it's really what your world is like. So we like to cater to different people because we've been there. We know exactly how you feel. So we want to produce content that fits into those buckets always, because it's just going to help people like learn where they need to level up, or try to figure out what their worth is, if something's not serving them, etc.
Exactly. And that's something that I didn't get to mention, but both of you have like a digital marketing, branding background.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, that hustle is real. And then also New York, right?
Yes.
So many factors. The space is competitive, as we all know it to be. And because we are from New York, because we are women of color, because we are women, it's just like it hasn't always been that these spaces have been just like open and welcoming to us. We kind of had to like force our way in these spaces and be seen and heard. Like we are qualified, we are capable, and let me show you. And a lot of our body of work comes from things that I and Ayanna have done on ourselves, like to kind of build a portfolio to show like, look at what we can do.
And from that, like we were able to identify what we felt corporate spaces were lacking. And this is why we focus on our 4 C's, which are creativity, cultivation, collaboration, and change, because we felt like in our corporate spaces, especially being women and especially being women of color, we weren't getting that at all. Like it was hard to like be able to collaborate on the right teams. It was hard for people to even want to like know what we're thinking and offer that creativity or that lens. It just felt like such a challenge. And we were just tired of going into corporate spaces and not being heard. So we felt like someone else has to feel the way we do. And then also not only feel that way, but what can we do to like create the life that we want, whatever that looks like, whether it's in a corporate space or not. Like, how can we do that? How can we serve that? And that's kind of how non-corporate girls like came to be.
Right. And even with the not being heard is letting people know what you need, because that was a learning curve as well. Like as certain people navigating their careers and just maybe entering the space, sometimes you think because you got the job that you don't have to do more. Like you have to like have these conversations about what your goals are. What do you see for yourself, whether in that role or in the future in your life, and how can someone be in support to help you get there? Sometimes you just go into your workspace and you think like that's kind of going to develop on its own. And it wasn't until like me and my own experience that is like, no, you have to kind of advocate for yourself. But what am I advocating for?
Right.
And then I love the point, creating the life you want. I think that's something that you need to lean into more. People need to. Am I frozen? Okay.
No, you're
People
good.
need to lean. Okay. People need to lean into that more. That idea of being able to create the life that they want. Our careers doesn't have to. Well, they're not linear, one, but they don't have to be, cookie cutter or what the book says. And what I mean by book is like, what the experts say. You really can create the life you want. And sometimes it takes that 5 to 9 to do that. So I love that you all have created that space for everyone to do that. But as you've been, because how many seasons are you on now?
5. We're season 5, episode 96 that we just wrapped yesterday, actually.
Wow, so you're close to 100.
Yes.
Ooh, how does that feel?
I'm proud. I'm proud, and it hasn't been easy. Like these have been 96 episodes of pure passion and grit and like intention. But I'm really proud that we have kept going, because I don't even feel we still have fulfilled our entire vision of what we see for girls. But we're still working at bringing it to fruition.
Yes, 100%. Like, even in the beginning when we first started, we never thought this would be what it is. You know, when we first started doing creating our episodes, we were like, can we even be consistent with this? Will we even have enough content? Like, what are we going to talk about all the time, right? And that was like a concern. So as we continue to produce different things, and we really operate, we call our podcast a digital diary because it really is in real time. Like, everything, as me and Delaila are growing, our brand is growing because we're literally sharing everything that we're learning or feeling, our tough moments, everything. And that's really been helping us create what we want this to be. So it's like literally building it step by step as we go.
Yeah, the blueprint, or rather like helping others to not make mistakes, like avoiding them through the things that we've experienced. So like for somebody else, is like they can take another path because of the one we've taken. Maybe it didn't lead us down the road we wanted, or it took us a little bit longer. So even if we could be just that example, I feel like we're adding value to someone in some way.
Yeah.
And so you've done all of these. So some of your podcasts are just YouTube, right? But you also do interviews. So with the guests that you've interviewed, what is a common theme that you've come across when it comes to, I guess, career and how people are navigating them from your guest's perspective?
Yeah, I would say, and I'm really interested to see what Delilah's going to say, but I would say our guests really fall into the space of understanding what doesn't serve them. And that really talks to our three pillars, because there are people who are in corporate. Oh, we have guests across all three, right? So there are people who are in corporate spaces that are cool being in corporate. They just may be lacking one of those 4 C's, and they're trying to figure out how to navigate that and what that looks like. But it still comes down to they're in situations that aren't serving them. So they need to figure out how to leverage and level up. Then we have those middle people who don't know if they want to stay in corporate, don't know if they just really want to have the side hustle, or both. And they're still trying to figure out, like, how do they create that space, right? So if it's leveraging both jobs or not, if they're going to transition, they don't know, but they're still recognizing a need, right? They're starting something or creating something from a passion because there's something that's lacking in what they're currently doing. And then there's that last part that's like, I'm out. I don't want to deal with corporate. I'm going to do my own thing. I'd rather be my own boss. And they definitely recognize places that didn't serve them. So I would say the through line for all our guests that I've observed is that they're clear on places or situations that are not serving them and how they can really create what they want.
Yes, and this is why me and Ayanna, like, we don't discuss things before we try to like have a wow factor during the live. So my response is kind of an extension of that, but it's more that a lot of them mentioned that they needed someone to advocate for them to help them realize what those next steps were going to be. So having someone who advocates for you, they all understood at one point in their career it was going to help them to level up, because a lot of people didn't realize what the possibilities were until someone presented them those possibilities.
Similar to non-corporate girls too.
Absolutely. That is exactly like our DNA of why we continued, because somebody saw so much more for us. And it's not that we are playing small, but we just didn't realize the potential of what this could be. And a lot of those people that have been guests on our show, they didn't realize how much more space it could have taken up.
I love it. I love it. And one thing that I like to ask all of my guests is, what's their lemons to lemonade, right? So as you've been building and growing non-corporate girls, what's a challenge that you have faced, and how do you keep that momentum going?
I'm like, Brittany, you got time? Because
right. Let me tell you, the challenge to get on this live for me, even today, was something I overcame, because I do love speaking and discussing, but I'm an introvert, extrovert, and I have to like prepare for these conversations, even though no one is watching us and it's only us three. It's just a process to like
mentally,
to want to share and put it out there. And it's like, did people feel they already heard this information? Is it going to be useful? There's all these things where you start to doubt yourself. But I know what I possess. I know what value I do give. And so you kind of got to talk yourself and pep talk yourself and get yourself excited and be like, no, there's something here worth sharing, and I'm gonna share it.
Yeah, and I think like just in general, like with the business and just how we've grown, it's been a huge learning curve for us because obviously we never had a podcast, we never said this, we never been in the business together, right? Like we're partners. That's different. So I think we've had so many challenges as just not necessarily being partners because we actually have a great synergy and I've heard stories, but we don't have those stories. But just like learning to work with someone and literally having to like roll out a business when you have no blueprint for that. Like, yeah, there are tools and resources, but every business is different. And we're also a podcast vertical, which is hard. It's like, how do you scale this? Like, what does that look like? And no one really has the answers. Like, there are people doing it great, sure. There are people who are not really sure how to move up. And then there are people in the middle. And this industry has been so saturated. There are so many podcasts, but it's like, who's really like, what's really like moving the needle? Like, it's hard. So we face that too. And just on the back end, like all the things you need to know about the business, taxes and this and that. It's so much. And then trying to operate with full-time jobs on top of that. So tons of challenges. Literally, Delaila and I, maybe like every quarter, we have a moment where we're like, do we want to do this still? Are we still in this? Like every time. And then we talk ourselves out of it every time and just continue to push forward because this is a passion. And we know that how we feel is literally how the majority feels. And there's a community for us. So.
Yeah. And someone said or mentioned not too long ago that those who don't reach success is because they stop too soon. And I feel like the moment that we stop, we're probably just right there and we don't even know it, but we're not gonna know it until we continue,
And it would be our luck to stop and then boom. So we got to keep going.
It still feels right to keep going.
You definitely have to keep going. And it also depends on how you define success.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, it is a saturated market for sure, but everyone has their own markers. For some, it could just be, I know that I'm impacting someone. It might not be thousands, but there's a consistent group of people who are getting impact from the things that I'm producing or curating. And so that fuels you. Some people are like, $signs. I'm not going to have a podcast unless I can make X, Y, and Z in advertising.
Right.
So I guess it just depends on what that looks like. But you all are almost at 100 interviews.
Yeah.
I mean, not interviews, but episodes. And that's successful for me. To me, because you kept going and you're at this like monumental point. 100 is a big deal. A lot of people don't make it past one season.
Right. I mean, you speaking it, Brittany. We hear you.
Whoever's out here that sees the potential and possibilities, like, let's connect because we have so many ideas. We really do. And it's just about like putting the foot to the pavement and bringing them to fruition. But we do rely so heavily on our community because that's kind of where our growth, that's our growth marker is our community.
Mm-hmm. And as we're talking about this and just the difficulties or the challenges, one thing that I noticed, because I'm in the career space too, it's a challenge just growing in this particular space in general. For women of color content, there's not even a media hub really, like how there's like the Muse, or back in the day they had Levo just for women. Levo doesn't even exist anymore, right?
Wow.
And some of these career hubs are having a hard time getting the advertising dollars. Major women's magazines, their career section is dwindling. Some of them is non-existent now. So it's just a really hard space. But ironically, we're in the time where we need this content the most. So with that being said, and just like your digital savvy and expertise, what are some trends that you all are seeing in this space for careers that, you know, career seekers and even like corporate partners should be tapping into, you know, with, you know, getting our content, coming to some of the things that we have.
Yeah.
I can start. So I just feel like even before COVID, but especially during the time of COVID, everyone has noticed that career and work balance is not such a thing anymore. Like your work is part of your life. And I feel if more corporate partners or people who own businesses looking for employees understand the needs of your employees, then you'll be able to support them and advocate so that they can do their best work when they do check in, but they don't feel guilty if they need to handle personal matters. So I feel like more companies need to understand that the days of just clocking in and doing my work from 9 to 5 and clocking out, that dynamic is so outdated. So that's just one thing that I feel like needs to be a trend for more companies to adopt and be okay with that level of flexibility. And also to trust that the people that you're hiring are capable of getting the job done no matter what the environment is. It doesn't always have to be in an office.
Right.
That's my take per se.
I agree with that. And I also think just focusing more on D&I, I feel like a lot of companies, as we all know, right? We've known this because we're people of color. So we know that companies do a horrible job of D&I. But with the whole last year that happened, now companies are trying to tap into like what that looks like for them and try to like do a great job. And like, yeah, like you saying, Delaila, it's all talk. So everyone is not executing D&I initiatives to the best of their ability. And that includes employees, right? And I feel like a trend that has been popping up is a lot of small businesses who are owned by people of color trying to put people of color out there, right? Like Mem Connects, for example, and other businesses and platforms that are really showcasing the talent. And I think that it would behoove people to want to enlist these companies to help them spearhead their D&I initiatives, because there's so much Black and brown talent out there and other people, obviously all people of color, that can bring so much to the table, and they're looking to check a box. So they're not really trying to dig deep into what those skill sets are. And they're also sticking to like this formal interview, formal job description situation. And everyone's multifaceted. Everyone has hyphens in their name. Like you have to be able to figure out how you can leverage and kind of like create different roles that you're looking for with people of color. So that was a lot, but I feel like D&I is a really important trend that people are not doing properly. So I would want them to do that. And then also just like tapping into all the communities that are not just like platforms to like help people of color get jobs, but people who are actually influencers or experts themselves doing marketing, doing like what you're doing, Brittany, like having these platforms that can really, companies can really partner with and be able to leverage on the content more.
And understanding that it goes beyond a single month, like working on these initiatives throughout the entire year and enrolling people. Because a lot of the times it's like in these D&I initiatives, to say the least, it's like a VP role for a Black woman, but what about the mid-level roles? And what about like the incoming people that are like very new, fresh out of college? There should be diversity up and down and across. It shouldn't just be like filling a space in your board team.
Exactly. And I love your thoughts on those trends. I did want to add that I also think there's a trend with companies getting vendors or contractors in the career space. They're not utilizing, like you said, in career influencers, consultants in the way that they should.
Absolutely.
And there's so many of us out here.
So many.
And that's what you to my point of like, there's a different way of working. It's not a 9 to 5. Like there's people who want to be a part of so many things. And so it would behoove me or like do my best interest to work on this project for 3 months, do my best work here, and then move on to the next one for another 3-month contract or for a year opportunity, depending on whatever that is that fulfills what my goals are. But like I said, the days of just a 9 to 5
Yes.
For me to get the full scope of all my gifts, I feel like it goes to Ayanna's point of being able to adapt and utilize my skills in different facets, not just what you hired me for.
Exactly. Yeah. So those are things that I also see, like you all said, with the way the world is virtual, you don't have to be in a space. Companies can really tap into the different, communities like Mem Connect, different career experts like Ariel Lopez, and different women who are consulting and helping with those efforts in house. So you all are on it with that. And then we started to talk about the impact. This pandemic has hit women of color in the worst ways. It was already tough enough for us to job search, but now we're in a crisis with so many people unemployed. It's just so competitive, and you have so many people trying to get jobs, and women of color get the short end of the stick.
Right.
So I would love how has that played an impact in the content that you all create? And then the second part of that is, what advice would you give job seekers during this time?
You want me to start?
You go ahead.
All right. So for the content, I'm glad that you brought that up because we definitely right away came together to put our heads together to figure out how could we add value. And one of the things that came from that were our lunch and learns, where we're literally getting experts in different parts of your career or business. One that just most recent we led by Carla, which is our head of social. She did one on portfolios, and so it's like creating this kind of toolbox for people to kind of position themselves and market themselves for the roles that they want. You need a portfolio. You need your headshot. You need like all these things that are gonna make you marketable. We're helping people to create those things by the content that we basically put on non-corporate girls.
It was important for us at the top of last year to really pivot. And we did have a segment that we started talking about in our episode 2 called the pivot or whatever, because it's kind of like, how are we all navigating this space this year? And that was an ongoing conversation, as I'm sure you know. And it was important for us to highlight that every moment we could, because we know that everyone is moving very differently. We know that everyone has different lives. And now working from home, that has changed drastically. So like, what is life like for you? How are you an accountant, and how do you operate in this space? How are you a lawyer? Like different things like that. And how can we help the community? So it was important for me and Delaila to really come together at the top of last year when everything started happening, and really like iron out some new series that we could focus on our Instagram and our social media, and really getting it out there. And then for the content itself, talking to everyone in the space, right? Like, we all know we're bogged down with Zoom meetings. So like having different content around that, having different content about how to like organize your space, create your new office space, all those type of things. Like, we really wanted to cater to the people that were tuned into our content, and we needed to meet them where they were at.
Right.
And then advice. You said advice. What advice? I think for me, my biggest thing that I always say is do the work. And it's so simple and easy, and people say it all the time. But I'm a big like backer on people understanding the work that they need to do and taking the accountability for that. I think that nothing happens unless we put effort into it. So there's so many people, especially with the pandemic, right? That people were hit hard. So people are like, oh, I'm just gonna, take time and do this. These are the times, like, you need to operate the way you need to, but in that space, this is also the time for you to figure out what's next for you. Sharpen a new skill, do some, like, just kind of figure it out, but like put some effort into it. And I feel like a lot of people don't do the work. Honestly, they just don't. You know, people want to start businesses and they have these grand ideas, but there's no action. It's just kind of like a dream is just dream until you act on
An
it.
Instagram post I shared just yesterday that 75% of people don't follow up. So
Ooh,
your follow-up game has to be strong. That's
yeah.
my career tip. Like, follow up, send out a thank you letter. Let people know that you valued what they shared with you. Like, let's say if anybody's watching this live right now, something I said was, it touched you, or like, it was something that you can use. Like, reach out to me and let me know about that, and then ask me a few questions about whatever career advice you may need. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's
Right.
different ways to kind of connect with people, and I feel like people need to think out of the box. Another thing is, like, look at the roles that you're interested in and see what they ask you to know, and learn those things. If it asks for knowing how to use Adobe Pro, go and teach yourself Adobe Pro. If it tells you you need to know how to edit video, you don't know how to edit video, learn to edit video. So it's like just making yourself as useful as possible so that you can beat up the competition.
And I'll add to that knowing your transferable skills, because there's a lot of people who feel like they don't hit the requirements right out the bat and things like that. And my first issue with job descriptions is the people who are applying, you want them to be able to not have everything checked off because they're supposed to grow. But whatever, let's say you are looking for someone who has all of it. People feel like, oh, I'm not going to apply because this may not talk to me directly, or I may not feel like I have the points to hit it. We all have transferable skills. Learn to understand what yours are and leverage for the role you want. Anything is possible. People will look at you. You just have to make them.
So important. Yes. We have to do our very best to put our best foot forward and to optimize the time. Be creative. Like you said, think outside of the box. Follow-up game. That is so important.
So important.
I actually read an article from Fast Company today about introverts and how virtual meetings may not be, how do they use their voice? How do they stand out?
I reposted that. I saw you post
that. Okay. But one of the things that they said was a superpower of an introvert is the follow-up. How are you collaborating? How are you following up with people? You may not speak up in these meetings or what right now, networking virtual events. You may not know how to raise your hand and participate in the chat. But what you can do is, like you said, Delaila, follow up with me, send me an email, say, hey, I enjoyed X, Y, and Z. You said this, I'm going through this issue. What's your thoughts? Okay. Or you could also just say, I looked at your Instagram. I know that you all do IG live stories. I'm trying to get more experience with social media because that's the type of career. Can I volunteer to do social copy or whatever?
Right.
There's just so many different ways to utilize the time that we're in.
Like, people are accessible these days. There's no excuse. As long as you come to someone respectful and we not even your receipts, because if you're trying to build something, you might not have those credentials just yet. But if you come respectful and not wasting anybody's time, more often than not, people would be open to help you.
But that goes with doing the work. Like, people just don't want to take that extra step. Like, following up is literally an extra step. People don't want to do that.
They don't.
Like, it's crazy. And me and Delaila, our follow-up game is clutch. We are A1.
It really makes a difference between who someone will give more of their time to and who they won't. If you even someone wants to have a virtual meeting with you, if they don't schedule the appointment, follow up, hey, just want to make sure we're still on, or I don't know, just follow up. Then that's when you kind of I don't know if I want to spend any more of my time with this person because they're canceling meetings. They're not following through. I tell you to text me and you text me a whole month later.
And you know what, Brittany, I'm happy you brought that up because there are people who will reach out to like, you know, they want to chat, whatever. And it's like, why do I have to ask you to send me a calendar invite? You reached out to me. Like you need to be trying to get my time. And like, you know, and I love giving people advice. I love being a mentor to people. So I like take most emails and calls. But my whole thing is like, you don't want to waste someone's time. You have like a small window to like impress someone and to get your point across. So there are people who like, they just don't kind of put it all together, you know, and that's disappointing.
It is.
And it takes time. Like you can tell who's new at it, but
those people even advice and like, hey, this is what you could do better. Some people feel offended, but we do offer a better way to handle things.
Yes, constructive. We like to offer constructive criticism when we feel like we get an ask that doesn't seem quite right or things are missing. We do.
We have an episode called Bad Business Practices. I definitely suggest everyone take a listen to it.
Well, you'll have to send me the link so I can share that with people.
Oh, yes.
Will do.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, this is a
technical difficulties. We worked that out together, so thank you.
Oh, Brittany, like this is nothing. We've had podcast episodes fall apart. Like, I mean, this is we're comfortable. We feel good about this. Before we go, Brittany, I just want to tell you that I truly appreciate your content. I'm like an avid stan of your platform. I read your newsletters. I follow I'm here for everything that you dish out. So this was really a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I miss you all. I miss seeing your faces. Like
I know. At the events.
For those of you that don't know, like we used to be on that networking scene. So it is not just like our own events, just other events. If Spotify happened, I knew y'all were going to be there.
We be there.
That's definitely
days.
And you moved out of New York, right, Brittany?
Yes, I'm in Nashville.
I feel like everybody on my timeline is moving back to Nashville.
Yeah, you saw Morgan's announcement today.
I did.
So I'm excited because now we have some Black Girl Magic coming to Nashville.
There's a lot. I'm gonna have to come visit Nashville.
Yeah, Netta's here, so I'm really excited to when we can get back to normal to like really collaborate and do some great things with them.
Yes, definitely keep us in mind because we always love a good collaboration.
Yes.
And well, thank you, all right, ladies. Thank you so much, and continue to keep up the great work. And for all of you, we're going to continue to do this live on Thursdays. So join us next Thursday. We will be talking to the founder of Podcast in Color, and her name's Barry, and she's going to be talking about her collective and some of the job opportunities for people of color behind the scenes and her Lemons to Lemonade journey with that. So make sure you tune in next week, and then also follow us. Follow Brittany Oliver. I'm working on the website, so once that's up, we'll have our own LinkedIn page. But for now, follow us on IG and on Facebook. All right. Well, thank you again. Thank you for sharing space with us on today. And I hope to see you next week, you all. Have a good day.
Bye.
And I also want to mention, if you missed any of this conversation, you can find the video on our YouTube as well as Facebook. And I believe it saves on LinkedIn. So you can watch it later. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.